All right, welcome to Served. Listen, I'm excited about today's episode. So producer Mike, when we started this show, so Chris Eubanks, he's the guy who said he didn't want anything to do with us. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah, I remember that.
He's the guy who's like, oh, it'd be cool. Like he's the guy. He's like the best broadcast. Yeah, it'd be great if he said yes. He's like, oh no, I got to focus on my tennis. And by focus on his tennis, he meant I'm going to do all the media and be good at it.
We weren't enough.
This is him. This is the guy that said no. Yeah.
Nice to meet you,
I didn't know
Chris.
this was going to come up. I didn't know we were going to come up so early, but yeah.
Let's rip it off.
I mean, you're switching some, but that's kind of essentially how it kind of went.
Well, I think it was.
You're not that far off.
Well, I actually think it was. I was like, do you have any interest? He's like 100%. And then like 3 days later, he was like, it was 0%.
It didn't happen that fast. I was like all in. And then it just, as time went by, I started to think more and more about it. And I'm like, I'm about to be in the top 100 for the first time.
Yep.
I'm technically with ESPN for a certain number of events. Oh, am I gonna be the guy that's now is like, oh, my breakout year? Hey guys, I'm on a podcast. Like it's just, I'm like, oh, do I want to do that? And I'm like, let me see if I establish myself first before I, add on too much. So I was so bummed, but then to see the success you guys have like had, I'm like, so close. I was like, I could have been a part of that.
Good. But so he just told a version of that. Can I translate that for you, Mike?
Yeah, please.
I talked to my agent. And my agent knows what ESPN is. Essentially, if we had to paraphrase all of that stuff, I talked to my agent. When he's like,
someday we'll be good enough.
Yeah, I knew we were fucking Magoo
today's the day.
Oh, I knew we were fucking Magoo when he's like, oh yeah, man, we can create our own stuff. Yeah, but it's from okay. Let me just talk to my agent. I'm like, Mike, we're fucked. We're screwed. We are absolutely screwed. Hey, listen, all jokes aside, I've said this before on Twitter. I want to get into your tennis journey because I think a lot of people got to know you. It's like spending your whole life becoming an overnight success. I think a lot of people got to know you last year when you were 27 with your run on the grass, and everyone fell in love with you at Wimbledon, and everyone continues to fall in love with you for tennis. And listen, I've said this on Twitter. I've said this to anyone who will listen. I think you're the best natural tennis broadcaster that I've ever seen, which I think it's one of the reasons why I wanted you to say no to, or I wanted you to say yes, but I forced you to say no to us. But I want to get into the weeds. I want to hear about your tennis journey. I want to hear about this like tightrope you're walking between two careers, right? And how do you touched on it a little bit, and we're joking, but we'll get to the serious parts of this conversation. And also, there's no chance I open a show like that with someone who doesn't have a sense of humor. So I appreciate you. Fresh off the U.S. Open, one of the things I want to talk about is last year you're going into the fall season top 30 in the world. This year you're just outside the top 100. Walk us through the differences and explain to the audience what fall looks like from the top 30 versus the reality of kind of building back to that top 30 stature now. What does the build back look like?
Yeah, so I can go a few different ways with that. So let's start with last year. Last year I finished US Open, ended up going and being a part of Laver Cup as an alternate. Went from there. So I believe I skipped one of the China's 250s. Or 500 was Beijing, because Beijing was stacked that year, last year. And I think I skipped that one, and I went and just played Shanghai. From Shanghai, I then came back, went to from Shanghai, I went to Stockholm, Basel, Paris Masters. I won one match in Shanghai. I had a bye. So I played second round Shanghai, won a round, made third round, and then didn't win another match. But I'm playing 250, 500, 1000s. It's like top tier, obviously talent every single week. And it's my first time doing that. It's usually if I'm playing 250s, 500s, 1000s, I'm starting in qualies. I'm kind of building my way into it. Now it's like, I'm in the main draw already. I know what day I need to get there. I know what day I start. Like it's a lot more, say, like secure in that way. Fast forward to this year, my fall is obviously very, very different. I still could go and play some of those Asian tournaments if I wanted to. I could be in qualies and kind of build my way that way. However, the way that the points are kind of set up, So qualies of a 250 is the same as main draw of a challenger. It's roughly the same amount of points if you win 5 matches in a challenger or you start in qualies and win 5 matches. There's a cap on it, obviously. You can't go above, if you win 5 matches in a tour event, there are 2 more matches there. Like, you can't exceed that in a challenger. But in essence, it's the same points-wise. If that makes sense. I think it's like 6 points to win first round of a 250, 12 second. So it's like, okay, yeah, maybe the money's better at those tournaments, but I've spent a lot of time on the road this year. It is nice for me playing back in the States and being just kind of a little bit more in my comfort zone. And even if, they are challengers, there's still really good opportunity for me to play some really good tennis to kind of end my year strong. I think I'm playing 7 challengers to end the year. We start in Columbus. We go to Charleston, Tiburon. There's another one in between there if you want, Fairfield. I'm not doing that one. I'm going to take 2 weeks off. And then I'm doing Sioux Falls, South Dakota. First time they're having it this year. And then Charlottesville, Knoxville, Champaign, the normal 3 that they have at the end of the year. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to Asia and play bigger tournaments. And that's in some ways tougher competition for the same amount of points as I could if I were, playing the challenges in the US. I would rather do that. So that's kind of the decision between the two. Whereas, like, for instance, last year when you're top 30, you have to play the tour events. You can't go and play challengers until you drop outside of 50.
Yeah, you get fined.
So it's like your schedule's
Oh, really?
Yeah, you get fined.
You get fined.
So it's like your schedule is pretty much made
It's
for
absurd.
you. Yeah. So it's like you already know. Oh, I'm either playing Basel or Vienna. I'm playing Paris. I can maybe play a week after Paris and Metz if I want. But it's pretty easy. Now I have a little bit more options. I could have gone to France and played some of the indoor challengers there, which were bigger. But I like playing in the US. I'm comfortable in, a DoubleTree, Marriott, and Chipotle. Like, I'm good. It doesn't take much. I can drive myself around. I feel at home. So.
The one
drive himself around a Cadillac.
Well, yeah, exactly. One Taylor Fritz patch deal, and he's already name checking Chipotle here. I respect the hustle, but also like the side of that I keep thinking about is. Listen, we know what top side is. We know what maybe we don't know the total ceiling, but we know Chris's level when it's the best, right? Like we're talking about last 8 in a Grand Slam, winning a title, but matches win. Like Emma Navarro was playing in Tyler, Texas in October of last year, right? Like the risk is not only points and money, but for me, if I'm looking at you, if I'm coaching you, Chris, I'm going, listen. If we get 6 weeks where we're confident we're going to get matches every week and like winning is contagious, I don't care what professional level, right? You win challengers. If I see a guy, would I rather play a guy who's won a handful of matches over the course of 2 months on tour or a guy who's ripped off 2 challengers in a row? You bet your ass I'd rather. It's not even close.
Chance.
Give me the guy who's won a couple of matches in the last 2 months versus the guy who's been ripping it on the Challenger Tour.
Perfect. And then the other thing too, with someone with like my game style, I've always played when I've played a lot of matches. It's like you play your way into form. A perfect example, Giovanni Pesci-Pericard, the big Frenchman that we've been kind of talking about. He won the title in Lyon this year before the French. I think he played well there. He had a good Wimby run. Like he won 2 challengers in Mexico, one in altitude, one at sea level, back to back in like April.
That's tough.
And you went with that type of game style, serving 2 first serves. If he's bombing his serve is that confident, like he came straight into the tour, and I think won his first title in Lyon maybe like a month later. Like it's crazy. So like especially with like big game styles, if we're playing a lot of matches, usually it bodes well.
Yeah, I was talking about. I got in the conversation with Francis a couple days before the U.S. Open. And we just kind of rolled our. I said, "Listen, way to kind of turn your year around, And it's something we don't talk about often. And I know you made the decision to go and experience the Olympics, and it looked like it was the most fun ever. We also don't get credit for unpopular decisions, right? So Francis goes. Francis is not in the semifinals of the U.S. Open if he plays the Olympics. I'm just telling you right now. Like he's not. We need to go. That was the right decision. We don't like doing it because we get mad whenever anyone skips the Olympics, but. We were talking about it, and he is like, listen, he makes a semi in Washington, grinds out some matches, doesn't turn, like was up, could have won the semis, but less important, gets weeks where he's winning matches consecutively, and then gets to Cincy, has that breakout event, and I'm talking about it, and I said, like, one of the years where I was playing like shit for the first half of 2006, dropped out of the top 10 for the first time in God knows how long, was 1 point away, match point down to drop out of the top 20 in Cincinnati, first round. and then you get through one match, you choke your way through. It's not as if you figure it out. The guy chokes worse than you do for like one match, and then all of a sudden by the semis, it's like, oh, I'm back. I'm here. It wasn't like you're never as far away from it as you seem. You're never as close as you seem. And I said to Francis, and I did this little hand motion. And we both said the phrase at the same time. You get a bunch of matches. I go, everything just, and I start moving my hands, down. I go, slows down. The decisions become clear because when you're trying to find it, I feel like the game goes really fast. I would put the priority on matches, especially when you're trying to build into the next season. 10 out of 10 times, I don't even think you need to use the Chipotle thing. I think however many matches you can play, more. And, I see players like they'll lose 2 first rounds like, oh, I need a break. I'm like, oh my God, you need to, you just look in the mirror and then go play the next week. Like you have to get rhythm.
One thing too, Andy, that I love that you brought up the Olympics. Like, at the time I benefited from it. So I told Francis to his face, like we did an interview with him on ESPN, and I said, hey man, thanks for skipping the Olympics. And, he gave me the chance to go. But the thing that I think gets missed in that conversation, especially when we're talking about the Americans and those who choose to skip the Olympics, this is also the slam that's coming up. That's our home slam. It's the one that we probably put the most pressure on. If the French Open followed the Olympics, I think more players would be like, I'll play the Olympics and play that. But like for the Americans, it's like we really have to make like tough decisions during these summer months, because come late August, come September, it's like this is our event now. Like this is the one that we're supposed to do. So it sometimes, like obviously seeing the discourse of people saying, why would you skip the Olympics? Like it's like, yes, it is. These aren't easy decisions, but we also, especially Americans, have to look at what's 2 months later. Oh, that's our one. That's the one that we really want to peak at. And so I think the conversation is different with players of other countries as opposed to Americans going into the Olympics or going into post-Olympics.
I also think self-awareness is a superpower sometimes, and not enough players actually have it. Like Ben Shelton pulls out of the Olympics, and I kind of suspected that was coming, for a while. Francis pulls out of the Olympics, and I'm going, well, yeah, because they're not like maybe outside of doubles and you get a draw or whatever. And I don't know how that all works. And I'm sure Taylor and Tommy, and rightfully so, because they ended up getting bronze, are taking that next double spot. But like their likelihood of medaling in singles on their worst surface is significantly less than them having an impact at the U.S. Open, where they're both proven entities. Like that, I don't say it on air because then you get the backlash. But in real time, it's not as if I'm looking backwards and saying, "Oh, I was wrong." Like in real time, that was the right decision for them. I think.
Yeah, 100%.
I
100%.
I don't know. Listen, to the point where it's like the version of when you're playing a match and someone goes, "Hit it to their backhand." I'm like, "Oh, I should have thought of that, man." Like that. No shit.
God, man, yeah. It gets me. I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. We're out here doing our jobs, and someone that's just sitting up in the 12th row with a hot dog is telling us, "First serve here." It's like, yeah, okay, all right, bro.
Producer Mike, I loved it. It was my favorite moment of the U.S. Open amongst many. We're sitting there, the first time he's ever been to the U.S. Open. People are name checking producer Mike, which pissed me off to no end. And then also, we're sitting there watching Novak, and he starts explaining to me why Novak is good. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
I've learned a lot.
Go get a $28 cocktail and just be like, I can't hear you right now.
It gets fed to me in the algorithm now, so I know it all.
Chris, walk us back a little bit. We kind of put the cart before the horse, but we can because we have no time limit. I was saying we got to know you a little, like at least tennis mainstream last summer. Run on the grass, your build through Miami where you broke into the top 100. I hope I'm getting this all right. Correct me if I'm not, but I think you broke into the top 100 for the first time at Miami with your run there. So you're kind of in our orbit very consistently last year for maybe the first time. Walk us through kind of your journey. The big tall dudes normally need more time. Not the slinkies now, not the Medvedevs and the Sinners and like all the human rubber bands that exist now. But walk us through your journey, the Georgia Tech of things. You come on tour. It's not instant, right? It's not instant. Like the struggle's real. talk us through your journey and how you ultimately ended up in the quarterfinals of Wimbledon, seemingly overnight.
All right. Oh, that's a good one. I could go a few different places. So I mean, I'll try to keep it as condensed as possible. But like growing up in Atlanta, like the first tennis player I can honestly say I ever looked up to was Jameer Jenkins.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know Jay. So like his family grew up, or he lived like 10 minutes from my house. His older brother played tennis with my older brother. So they went to his older brother Jermaine played tennis, because I believe his brother Jermaine and Jackie. I believe you probably know both of them.
I lost to Jackie.
You lost to Jackie, right?
In 1994 at Midtown Tennis Club in indoor nationals. He smoked me.
Well, hey, listen, I can tell you from somebody in the south side of Atlanta, we heard that a lot. Or Jackie beat Roddick. Jackie beat Roddick. Like it was like a thing. You're like, Jackie Jenkins, he beat Roddick,
no, he
back
didn't,
in the day.
He didn't beat me. It was almost a crime scene.
So our families have been close for years. So when I was coming up, Jay was the guy that I looked to. We called him Hands. Like he was the guy that he was number one in the 14s in the nation, number one in the 16s, number one in the 18s. He used the blue bab. He was sponsored by Adidas. He was the guy that I was like, man, I want to be like him. So Hands ended up going on to college, had a great career at UVA, and his brother Jermaine coached me for a few years. And then when I got to be about 15, I can remember my dad's taking me to school. I'm in high school at the time. And with no warning, no kind of like lead in, he's just very matter of fact. He goes, you're going to start going over to South Fulton and playing with Donald, working in Donald's parents' academy after school
Donald
program.
Young.
And then you'll get to practice. Yeah, Donald Young. And then you'll get to practice with Donald. So I remember when Donald moved to Atlanta, like it was like a big deal, because it was like, oh man, this is now like the best junior in the world is also in Atlanta. Like there's a lot of really good tennis players coming from the south side of it, or that are in the south side of Atlanta. So I didn't know Donald that well, but I knew that he was like obviously a big deal. I think at that time, D was probably, this is before he had, like right at the time he had his breakout year in 2011 when he like fourth round of Open, and it was around like right before that.
He beat Wawrinka there.
So yeah, he beat Wawrinka there in 5. So I'm like, my dad tells me this, no warning, and I'm just like, sweet, I get to go practice with Donald Young. Like this is cool. And so from that, I ended up, I would go to high school. I would get picked up to go to the academy. I would teach in the after school program. And then Donald would usually come out maybe like around 5 or 6. And then we would practice for a couple hours. And I got a chance to do that every day pretty much when he was in town, from the age of 15 to college, really, like that whole time. In the summer, he would take me with him to tournaments.
Oh, really?
I got to like practice with him. Yeah, he took me. So he took
That's
me,
cool.
my first 250 I went with him as a hitting partner was the San Jose 250.
Which, by the way, like a lot of the guys,
guys,
many of the guys actually they don't tour with hitting partners. Like that's not like a normal thing where, the women's tour, it's a lot more prominent because there's a certain type of ball you have to create and everything else. But like you don't see that a lot on the men's tour.
Yeah. So like he took me, he was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? I like got it okay with my school. I was like, yeah, like for sure. So we go to San Jose 250. This is in 2012 now. He just had his breakout year. So I remember I practiced with him a little bit that summer before he went to DC, and he's semi DC. That was the first big result that summer. And I was kind of feeling a little proud of myself. I'm like a 15, 16-year-old guy practicing with a guy. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm pushing him a little bit. Okay. He goes up there. He like, I think he beats like Baghdadis or something. He beats somebody good. Maybe not Baghdadis, but I know he's it was Leg Mason at the time, I think. At DC. Yeah. So he semi that. And then fourth round of the Open. Then he final Bangkok at the end of the year. So I'm practicing with him in that run. So I'm like, okay, yeah, like it's got to be something here. And then the next year is when he offered, hey, would you want to come on the road with me? So then we did that. We did the whole clay court swing. We did Casablanca 250, Monte-Carlo 1000.
You're 16.
I turned 16 in Rome, I think. I was 15. I turned 16 in either Rome or Madrid. Can't remember.
Yeah,
I think it was Madrid,
as Rafa would say,
yeah,
happened in Rome, but
Madrid.
happened in Rome. 16 happened in Rome. So you guys are in the clay court season. Walk us through kind of the rest of that year, and then.
So yeah, I got to, now I'm traveling with him. I'm training with him. I'm not playing many tournaments though. So like I'm kind of skipping the whole summertime of playing junior tournaments.
That's an interesting trade-off though. That's like a pretty intense decision.
Yeah, but I was 15, turning 16. I knew I still had time. And I knew even missing that summer in KZoo, like whatever, I still was going to be okay in the South, and the South was a pretty strong region at the time. So
that
like,
would
if
have
you were
caused
top,
me more stress than you're giving it. That would have caused me some
really,
stress.
to me, I didn't think I'd process the consequences. It was kind of like he's willing to, take you on the road with him. I get to go to Wimbledon. I get to go to the French Open. I get to go to Rome, Madrid.
That's
I'll figure the rest out.
Experience for sure. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'll figure the rest out. So I did that. Skipped obviously the summer tournaments. I think went with him to the Open. And then by this time, I'm like kind of that fall starting to play more tournaments myself. So I kind of go through the junior circuit. Now, my dad did something that was really unique for junior tennis. Because the South was a pretty strong region, when I was like Little Mo age, when I was like 10, 11, like I was good. I was really good.
Little Mo is like a big national kind of event for kids that are really young.
8 through 11, I believe. It's weird. They had odd age groups, but yeah, it was the biggest thing. And for my peers, I was pretty good. But then instead of traveling to do like summer hard courts and clay courts at 14, my dad just put me when I turned 13 into 18 and under tournaments in Georgia. So does that make sense? So instead of letting me follow the same,
I don't know if it makes sense, but I understand what you're telling me.
So instead of just having me play the same guys from the time of 12 to 18, he was just like, hey, we save a lot more money if at 13 we put you in 18. You're practicing with Donald during the week. We put you in 18 and under tournaments. You'll figure it out. And so I played 18s for like 13 to 14 to 15. And then I took that kind of break. And then when I came back at like 17, I started rallying. It was like, oh, I'm good. Like I had taken my lumps and everything, but I was ready because I had, years of practice. So my dad started that before I practiced with Donald, actually. I was like 13, 14. I didn't get with Donald till 15, 16. So his thing was, we're just going to put you in 18 and under. We can save money. We don't have to go and buy hotels to go to San Antonio.
That part of it makes complete sense.
We drive to Norcross, which is 30 minutes away. It was a money saver too.
Yeah.
So, was the goal at that time always to go to college?
The goal was to get a college scholarship. And then by the time I started back playing tournaments, I started rattling off some wins in my junior career. Still in the South, though, not really leaving. I think I went to Mobile, Alabama. It's like the furthest place I went. Everything else is in Georgia because Georgia is pretty strong. So then it comes the time where I did well in Mobile. I finaled our regional event. Now I'm starting to get some actual interest. Colleges. I remember I wasn't recruited by very many schools. Ohio State did reach out. Tennessee did reach out. But Georgia Tech was very consistent from the very first time.
Who was the coach there then?
They came, Kenny Thorne. Yeah. He's still there.
Yeah. I know Kenny. I used to travel with him.
They were very consistent. I did well in our state of Georgia tournament, which led into Southerns, and that kind of got on their radar because their assistant coach came to watch. And then I did well in Southerns, and then their assistant coach was also there. And then it formed a pretty good bond. And then, they came with interest. A lot of other schools, they kind of just made contact, but not really interested. But this is actually a pretty funny story. My Kenny had my dad and I down to the Tech facility to finally sit down in the office to really talk. And in it, we were new to the whole process. My brother played college tennis, Clark at Southern University and Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but it was a small school. So the whole D1 process we're new to. So we go down there and he sits in front of us. He's like, listen, we really want you. But this is in maybe say June. He said, on July 1st, we can start calling other players and, we have to see then, So my dad is sitting there, he's listening. I'm watching it and I'm like, this seems like a bit of a bluff, but he's like, if, we start getting commitments, June 2nd, things could be true.
But it could be true.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay. And so my dad gets up, we leave. He goes, Kenny, thank you so much for having us. We walk out. My dad puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, on June 1st, you're calling Kenny and committing because we're not taking any chances. So it might have been 2 weeks later, but whatever the date was, it wasn't that far off. And I'm like, Dad, we'll be fine. I was like, let's see, Ohio State was kind of interested. Maybe I can get a visit there. He said, son, on June 1st, you're going to call Kenny and you're going to commit. So I think June 1st comes. My dad just comes to me. He goes, did you call Kenny yet? I go, no. He just turned around, walked away. Didn't say another word. July 2nd comes or whatever. He goes, did you call Kenny yet?
Wait, July 2nd or June 2nd?
whatever, the next day. Like it was like one day later. I'd say the date might have been June 1st. So so June 2nd. So the next day goes by, my dad comes up. You call Kenny yet? No. So I'm supposed to go to Georgia Tech to practice with one of the current members on June 3rd. So, and he knows, and he's going to take me. So he asked me before we go, did you call Kenny and commit yet? No. I emailed Kenny before that morning, but I didn't. I told my dad I didn't.
Oh, that's funny.
He was so mad. He was like, you stop playing. You need to go do it.
That's funny.
I'm like, okay, that will be fine. So we get to the tennis center. So we're walking up to the tennis center. Kenny, the player that I'm about to practice with, and I think the assistant coach are like at the door, and they agree. And the moment I walk in, they just bust out clapping. Hey, good, thank you, though. Congratulations, yada yada yada. And my dad is like, and I looked at him. I go, I committed this morning. And he had the biggest smile on his face. He was like, oh, okay, good.
Have
he was
you
so stressed.
In the time at Georgia Tech, and then I want to start, get through college, start on the pros. I always remember like that first hit when I hit with someone, I'm like, oh shit, this is different. Like this is insane. Did you ever ask Kenny Thorne if that was like actually the date that you had to commit by, or did he?
No, I didn't. I actually should though. I've never asked him. I think I made some type of joke to him later. I didn't ask him if the date was right.
If he was bluffing.
But I did say, like, you knew my dad wouldn't he didn't know. So he kind of would freak out about it. Oh, Banks, what are you talking? I had to give the rules.
Yeah.
I had to give the rules. And I'm like, KT, you know, but you sat there and you were like, yeah, I'm going to see if I can put a little pressure.
Hey, listen.
My dad fell for it.
Hey, listen, it's only wrong if it's not right. And that sounded like
it worked out.
It seems like he got that right.
Everything worked out. Oh, man, shout out to you and Olipop, because I tried one in New York for the first time because of this, and it's unbelievable. It's like an adult soda. I'm I could do this. I like this.
And it's not like just...
It's like a Sprite, but it's kind of healthy. Like there's some health benefits. So I'm like, I got the lemon lime. I was like, oh, that's as close to a Sprite as I've had in a while.
That's literally what I'm having right. It's actually called Ridge Rush.
Yeah, it's Ridge Rush. It's a new flavor.
Walk us through Georgia Tech experience. Somehow you melt into the tour, and you're playing for your lunch at that point.
Yeah. So I went into it my freshman year, honestly not sure what to expect. I didn't know if I should come in and expect to play high. I knew I wanted to play. We had some decent guys. Also, but your perception on you think coming in as a freshman, like college tennis is like, oh my God, it kind of seems like so big. So I get in there, I play pretty decent in the fall tournament. And I ended up starting off the spring season or fall tournaments. I started off the spring season playing 2. So I was like, oh, sweet. I think I had a ranking. I was kind of like a low ranking, but I was like, wow, okay, cool. So I go, I'm very kind of like, I'm still trying to figure it out. I go undefeated at 2. I go like 6-0 at 2, and then I get moved up to 1. And then I was like, okay, now, but we're also in the heart of like, some of the first few teams you play of the season, you're trying to get some wins. Then you're going into conference play.
Like producer Mike could walk on those teams.
No, I could not.
No.
You might. But no. True, but then you move into the, tougher competition. Now I'm playing 1, and I'm kind of like win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, lose 1, lose 1, win 1. Like I think my record, I was 6-0 at 2. I think I was like 7-11 at 1. But I beat the number 4 player in the country who had started the year 1. That was one of my wins. I had a German guy from Louisville, Sebastian Stiefelmeier. So I got him out of kind of nowhere. Ended up making the NCAA tournament, won a round, played Nathan Pasha first round, and lost to Yannick Hanfmann second round. Absolute beatdown. 2-0. I played Pasha the day before. It was hot. It was bouncy. Great conditions.
You lost 2-0 with your serve?
Yeah, but no. Here's the thing. The next day we came out there, it was 55 degrees, overcast. The temperature changed drastically between days. And I'm playing Hoffman, who wants the ball right in the pocket. I can't serve around him. I can't get it up on him.
I don't care what the temperature was. I said what I said.
Andy, I was also 20. I was also 19, still like happy to be in NCAA.
Don't tell me about that shit. I don't want to hear it.
Oh my God, I'm trying. So yeah, Hoffman gave me a beat down, and to be fair, my serve wasn't what it is now. But then I go into the next year pretty confident. I have a good year. I go like 16-2, I think, in the spring. I was like top 5 in the country. I lost first round NCAAs. That hurt bad because I really wanted to do well. My junior year comes around. I go like 17-2. I ACC Player of the Year for the second year in a row. By this point, I'm starting to think like, wow, maybe I'm maybe I'm kind of good. Because also after my sophomore year, when I think SEC or ACC Player of the Year, I did play some futures for the first time. That's kind of when I started getting into playing futures. I played qualies of a few of them. Never qualied in.
What year is
like
this,
last round
Chris,
qualies
that you're talking about right now?
This is I graduated high school 2014, 15, 16. This is summer of 2016.
Yep.
So I played some futures. I think I get my first point in Tulsa, Oklahoma with Brad Stein there as one of the USCA coaches.
Who's now Tommy Paul's coach.
Yeah, so Brad was actually there when I got my first point. And then that summer, I played a pre-qualifying tournament for the Atlanta Open. And, complete fast forward. After my freshman year, I got my first wild card into the Atlanta Open.
That's what I remember. That's what I was about to say. I thought I remember seeing you.
I skipped over. That was a blur. I got shot by Stepanek 2-2.
Yeah.
But
that's a bad draw for someone who's not playing. I mean, he'll craft you to. That's not the one.
Yeah, that was bad. I can't believe I skipped over that summer. Yeah, my freshman year summer after that. I got the wild card into Atlanta. Played Stepanek, got a wild card in doubles as well. And Donald and I actually semifinal. We lost to the Bryans in the semis. We won 2 rounds. Like, I got my name on the rankings. Like, I was feeling pretty good. So then sophomore year happens that summer. They have a pre-qualifying tournament for the Atlanta Open because that year's wild card went to UGA. We used to alternate.
I was about to say, did they trade off Tech and then? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they trade off.
Smart.
So Tech would get one, UGA would get one the next year. Tech would get one, UGA get one. So I knew, like, if I played well, I would get one after my junior year. But I played the pre-qualifying tournament after my sophomore summer. I won it. I got a wild card in the qualies. I beat Tommy first round qualies and then Tiago Montero second round qualies. Now, this is after my sophomore year of college. So I'm kind of like, I'm pumped to be in the main draw because I'm like, man, UGA has a guy now, like Tech has a guy too. Like, that's kind of where my head was thinking. And then I lost to Riley 6-6. And that was, I think, the summer that Riley first kind of broke out.
It's the most predictable scoreline for that matchup that I've ever heard.
So then I go back to school. I play some challengers in that fall before the spring season. And I semi Champaign and lost to Henry Laxonen in the semi. So I'm still in school. I then go to spring season.
So at this point, you're in the thing where you're kind of like, you're in school.
I'm like, okay, I'm kind of winning some matches.
You're like a big result away from being like, I need to make a move.
No, not yet. Not yet. I'll tell you when that moment came. So the next spring season came. My goal was to win NCAAs in Athens. I wanted to be Georgia Tech and win an NCAA championship on UGA's courts. That was my goal the whole year.
Spite.
So then I play well. I get to the quarters and I lose to Tyke Wiatkowski, and he ended up winning it. He beat William Blumberg in the final. He ended up winning it. And then, so in my head, I told the guys on the team after my junior year, I go, guys, if I win NCAAs, I'm not coming back. I had already kind of made that decision. I told my teammates. They were like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, everybody was supportive. So when I lost in the quarters, my whole time, I'm like, I guess I'm going back to school. Then I start playing. Because now I have some points because of the challenger result, the qualifying to Atlanta result. I'm getting into 25Ks on my own. So I don't need a wild card from the USCA. So then I go to Winston-Salem. I play a 25K. I win it. And then they had another 25K the next week, and I finaled it, and I lost to Tommy. And then now I'm kind of like, whoa, this is interesting. Like, okay, that's a pretty big result. My ranking now maybe like 500 or 600. I get the wild card into Newport qualities. I think I lost, and then I got the wild card into Atlanta, the one that I knew I would get, and that's the one that I quartered. I beat Fritz first round, Jared Donaldson second round. Got chopped by Harry, quarters like 2-2. But now I got however many points. And I'm like, wow, I think I might go pro. Like, if maybe I can, see maybe the USA, I can get a wild card, who knows? But if I get a US Open card, because I'm not turning that money down, like, because I just can't afford to. My whole thing was, if I get in the US Open main draw, I'm gone. So then I qualified into Cincy. And then I got the wild.
You're winning matches like most weeks that you decide to enter the fray, right? I mean,
yeah,
that matters more than one result.
So then at that point, while in Cincy, after I qualified in, I found out the next day that I got the U.S. Open wild card.
Gone.
So now in my head, it's like I'm probably gone.
What's the conversation like with your parents at that point?
Good question.
My parents were honestly, they were great. They were like, listen, Chris, like you understand more about kind of how this works than we do. Like we trust you to make the right decision.
His dad said, have you called Kenny and committed?
But my dad was I will say my dad was a little apprehensive. He was a little bit like, you 3 years in, like finish it type thing. But he also understood that it was like, I think he trusted that I would make the right decision. And also I think a thing that helped was I had an older cousin that played college tennis at Michigan State. I kind of brought him into the loop as well. And he helped me like talk with like accountants and agents and figure out how it worked. And he was supportive. He was like, kind of like, hey man, I'll be a resource, but you got to make the decision. But I knew, I was like, it's however much, many $1,000s for the US Open. I'm not turning that money down and starting my professional career over with nothing. Like I just can't afford to do
you want to
that.
know the difference between Chris and a lot of other people? Is that when most people tell this story, they say, I started talking to agents, and he says, I talked to accountants and agents.
Yeah.
That is a massive difference in the way that you tell a story and explains a lot, by the way.
But so the other thing too, with the year that what made it even more difficult, the decision, or I would not say difficult, what made it easier was before 2017, you would understand it, Andy, so you probably can help me explain it better. You could only take the expenses for each individual tournament. Whereas if your prize money 1 week is $500, but your expenses are 1,000, oh, I'm sorry, you could only take your prize money is 1,000, your expenses 500. You could only take 500. You could only take that, and the other 500 just stays with the tournament.
Yeah,
that's how it used to go.
If you're not pro, they used to have, and I'm sure hopefully it's more organized now, but like you used to have to provide receipts to take the prize money, and you could only cover your expenses. Is basically like where it came. And so like you would. Like if someone, it was always funny, and this is it's kind of like the funny moments of the tennis tour, that if someone won a couple rounds and knew that they had to expense a bunch of shit, they're taking 10 people to dinner. Like it's you're eating.
Oh yeah,
you're going to Ruth's Chris because you can't take the money with you. But you might as well eat well.
Borrowing receipts from friends.
So yeah, you could be in a have a surplus one tournament. Sorry, what was that?
I said moving hotels.
Oh yeah, you're moving to the nicest hotel you can find. Like you have to burn through it. Like that's actually that's what happens. So
yeah, you can only spend it if you have a receipt.
Yeah, you needed the receipt. So and you had to kind of keep everything organized. And so and then you would play 1 week and you'd be in the hole. You have another week, you're positive. But your positive can't affect the week that you were in the hole. It's like it's each individual week on itself.
So you could have eaten a shit sandwich for 3 weeks, accrued all of those expenses, had a good week, and only been able to use that prize money for that individual week. Like, how stupid are we? We're so stupid.
But the NCAA is so good.
We're so stupid.
So, and then in 2017, they changed the legislation that would allow you to accept the full amount of prize money, but you would have to use it and allocate it for expenses for the calendar year.
Oh, but that's fine because that's kind of what you do.
It's fine.
Anyways,
it's fine. It makes total sense. It's like, if I go on a good run, in May and June, and I go on the hole in August and July, like August and September, like I can, as long as you keep record of it.
So it's like life.
So all of those, yeah, exactly. So all of those, tournaments I did in 2017, like the 2 futures that I did well in, the Atlanta 250, the US Open main draw. I got a US Open doubles card as well. Like I made its money, and I needed to know when I got the Open card, I was like, okay, I need accountants to help me figure this out for tax purposes, because now I'm going to have to pay back tax. That was the first thing in my mind, was like, if I go pro, all of this money that at first, like the first couple of weeks, I was spending, I'm like, hey, whatever. Yep, I'll get this rental car. Like I'll do whatever. And then it started to become a little more real. And I was like, let me start holding on to a little bit more of this money. And then the US Open came, and I started saving everything, because I'm like, I will have to pay back taxes. So I had like expense sheets, like Excel sheets. I had like receipts of everything, so that when the time came, I found an accountant. I go, hey, this is how much I made. This was my income. This was my expenses. I played in these states or these countries.
Dude, this is a story.
I need to make sure my taxes
I've never
are
heard
fine.
this story in my life. I've only been around tennis players my entire life. Like, of actually holding this and being able. Normally the accountant's going, oh fuck, what did you do? Like, I don't want to. I mean,
it's independent contractor life, right?
I can't work with you.
Independent contractor. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and because of that legislation, that also played a part in knowing how much money I was going to be able to start my career with if I went pro. If I hadn't had that, I'm kind of playing it. I'm taking a chance, like, what is it? But I knew that. And I said, and if I want to go back to school, I'll go find a tournament in Bali in December. I'll fly first class. I'll stay in the nicest, like, I'm traveling and playing just like, 15K here in Dubai. Why not? Go here. Sure. Why not? Like, just burning through cash. I'm like, because if I want to go back to school, that's what I'll do.
Coaching expense is just someone who's like a 10. No, she's a coach. She's a coach. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had it planned out. And so it was really like kind of keeping track of when it made sense to go pro. I then went pro. And then, like you say, I got up to, I think I started off 2018, maybe like 350 or something like that. And then I went to Mexico playing, like I started off playing a 25K at USC in LA. I finaled it, lost to Carousel. Shout out to Carousel. And then kind of played like challengers, first round, second round, whatever. And then I go to Mexico in April. I final the challenger in altitude, and then I win a challenger in altitude. So again, I had 2 really good weeks, kind of like I did in those futures, where I just kind of got hot with winning matches, boom, boom, boom. And then now I go from 300 to 180. And that's kind of where I spent majority of my career up until, a couple of years ago. I got 180. I think I got my career high up to 149. Hover.
So for those at home,
yeah, just kind of in that range, I would say.
So for those at home listening, we're having an inside baseball conversation about tennis. Explain, because when you said 350 to 180, I looked at Mike. I was like, okay, that's like, explain 350. You're in Godfrey, Illinois. You're
Godfrey. I've been Godfrey, there. Illinois, is still going. There. I think.
Yeah, one of the 2 futures I played. It did not end well.
Lewis and Clark.
Yeah. So Godfrey, but explain the difference for people listening that don't know the difference. I had a reaction when you said 180 because I'm going, I go, okay, challengers, you get qualies of slams, you're in qualies of most tour events, definitely 250. So explain the difference when you say 350 to 180. It's a significant difference, but explain the lifestyle difference. It's as significant as going from 180 to like 100.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. It's a rapid kind of ascension from playing. Like I say, I started the year playing a 25K, where I stayed with a friend, like a family friend, stayed at his house in Manhattan Beach, rented a car, drove to USC, had my own balls playing 25, and then I finaled it. And then you leave and you're doing it. It's very, there's a few people watching. It's not,
it's like junior tennis
at all, but it's what you have to go through.
It's like junior tennis tournaments, but without the parents.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's like. That's exactly what it's like. And then, so that's pretty much what my schedule is. If I'm 350, 300, you're starting to kind of get into challenger qualies, which, fun fact, I never qualified into a future and I never qualified into a challenger to this day in my career. So like I kind of skipped the challenger qualies because that's that kind of 220 to 300 range, 350 at times. Like that's kind of challenger qualities at that time when I was playing it. So I went from 100, got in a week challengers in Mexico, and then ended up finaling and winning. And now I'm 180. Now the first thing I'm sure when your reaction was, oh, you're in Grand Slam qualies.
Correct.
Okay. So now I'm in 250 qualies, I'm in Grand Slam qualies, I'm in like main draw challengers guaranteed. So it's just different scheduling in a way.
Well, you can start taking shots at the basket for the main tour. Like you can consistently schedule.
You're in arm's reach a little bit.
You're basically like, okay, I'm going to play challengers and accumulate points. And then you can start, like scheduling becomes a skill at 180. It's like, okay, I can take, my lively, I got to stay at 180 to basically take my pot shots at the tour. Is kind of the best way to describe it, but you can't do that at 350. Your schedule is basically dictated to you at 350 minus someone liking you and putting you in qualities of something you don't deserve to be in.
Yep, pretty much. But yeah, so I hovered there, got up to 149 or something, like right at 150, kind of fell down and kind of hovered between 150 to 220, and then I started to put together some pretty consistent weeks. I was like, I think it was 160. So what happened, I think now at the beginning of 2020, I qualified into Australia. I'm playing well. I decided to move to Orlando. and train at the USTA. Well, I moved down to Orlando in March of 2020.
So you got locked into a place you didn't know at all.
And then immediately after that, I remember I moved in. I lived with Mackie McDonald. He was my landlord for like a year and a half. So I moved in with Mackie, and Mackie's in Indian Wells. And so he goes, "Hey man, are you good? You got settled in?" "Yeah, man. Like, when are you coming back?" He's like, "I don't know. Like, things are kind of getting weird here in Indian Wells. Like, it's getting like they're kind of talking about coronavirus, whatever. But I'm sure it'll be fine." And I'm like, all right, things are pretty normal. And then like 2 days later, Indian Wells stops. Players still stay out there. Some are like, okay, I'm gonna go straight to Miami. Then Miami gets canceled. And then we started to see. So Mackie flew back and we were locked in his house together.
You and Mackie got to know each other a lot better.
Better than I thought we were going to. Like,
sounds like
really
a sitcom.
fast. It's like really fast.
Let's pitch that to Disney.
In the next episode of Mick Banks.
So I stayed down in Orlando. I trained down there, and when things started to open back up, I really kind of said, all right, I really got to try to figure this out. Like, and then I started to put together some pretty consistent results. I felt like I was playing really good at the beginning of 2020, like really well. I was playing really well, and then it stopped, and I had lost like a year, and I was like, okay, like I got to try to figure this thing out. So then I kind of get myself around that 150 range again. I'm kind of moving up. And then what happened then? So in 2022, I qualified into the US Open. No, this is 2021. I qualified into the Open, played France's first round, lost in 4. And then that's when I first reached out to my agent and say, hey, kind of going into a different direction. But I reached out to my agent, Carlos Fleming. And I was like, Los, like, I know Tennis Channel's starting to allow some current players to do some stuff. Could you maybe reach out to them and see if they might have any interest? Because I was like, I'm gonna be honest, like, if I'm 220 in 2 years and the injury has not played a part, like I'll figure something else out. Like I'm working, like I felt like I was kind of getting to a good point, but I don't know. I just felt a little frustrated. Although I played well in that Francis match, but I had already planned to talk to Carlos about this before the Open even happened. So we just had the normal conversation. I was like, hey, yeah, this is kind of what I was feeling. I know I just qualified in here. We'll see how it goes, but just maybe reach out and see if I can maybe start or try. He was like, all right, no problem. So then that's kind of how that started. That end of the year, I started to play pretty well, and then really found my form in, I believe it was beginning of 2022. Played well, started to really do well, and then I qualified into the Open in 2022 and won my first Grand Slam match. Now that's the first I had been main draw. I remember
watching that. Who did you play there?
I played Pedro Martinez first round, lost to center second round.
Center, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of
now
him.
I'm feeling way more confident. Now I'm like, okay. And mind you, I did Tennis Channel during the clay court season. Loved it. Felt like it honestly helped my tennis in a way. And then I go on
everyone
that summer.
Says that. Everyone says that.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that while playing.
Like,
ever.
what was it that helped your tennis? Do you think it was just watching so much more tennis from a different perspective?
No, I think that when you're sitting here watching matches beginning to end from like the best players in the world, you find little cues, you find little traits, like similarities amongst a lot of the guys who are winning these tight matches and losing these tight matches. So like, for instance, I did one of the times, and this kind of, I'll fast forward here in the story, Mike, and I'll get back. I'll give you a great example. So I win that match at the Open. I then go into the indoor swing of challengers, like at the end of the year. I did Tennis Channel the week before, and that was at the time, I believe that was end of 2022. That was when Felix went on that crazy run. He won a 500, finaled something else. Like he went on a tear at 3 consecutive weeks, an indoor season. And I remember I called one of those weeks. I think it was the Basel week in which he beat, I think it was Holger in the final, because I called that one. And one thing I noticed that entire week about Felix is he didn't miss a lot of balls wide. He's an aggressive player. He's serving big. He's running around the world to hit forehands.
Aggressive,
but he's not missing it wide. And one thing that I feel like a lot of coaches oftentimes told me, maybe you've heard it too, Andy, is don't miss in the net and don't miss wide. Don't miss in the net, don't miss wide. If you miss long, okay, not net, not wide.
So it's like, for me, so the different, like the psychosis being like long is a healthy miss because, net, you're giving yourself zero chance of anything good happening, right? You can hit a bad ball that barely gets over the net. It's not what you wanted, and you're still alive, right? You go net, it's just Deddy Magoo, from the word go. So those are the reasons why you hear that over and over and over ad nauseum, and it's right.
Yeah. So for me though, I could only deal with one of them. I was like, because I like to be able to swing out. There's some balls, my trajectory over the net is a little bit lower than some guys. There's some balls I have to go lower over the net. So I didn't want to think about net. I said, I'll just take out the wide misses because I saw Felix having a lot of success just cranking the ball, but using it middle third, using it straight up the middle. He's not going that close to the lines, and he was having a lot of success. So I then go to Charlottesville. I literally call the final on Sunday. I take a late flight out, land in Charlottesville Monday morning. For some reason, I had to play Monday evening. Don't know why they didn't give me a Tuesday start. I can't remember why, but it was crazy. So then I get there and I'm like, all right, I hit for like 30 minutes before the match. Let me just think, just don't miss wide. My only objective is to not miss wide. I ended up going on winning that match, and I finaled the tournament. I beat Jerry Shang, I think, in the quarters, maybe Emilio Nava in the semis.
Is that when you and Ben just started playing in the finals a bunch?
And then I lost to Ben in the final of Charlottesville. So then I go to Knoxville. Again, I'm telling myself, don't miss wide. Like, you can be aggressive and you can miss. You're just not going to miss wide. And I would go on to the final. I lose to Ben in the final there. And then I play Champaign again, thinking, don't miss wide, don't miss wide. And I lose in the semis to Alex Vukic, who then lost to Ben in the final. So now I'm like 120. So now this is the highest I've been. I hope that answers your question, Mike. Like, that's like an example of something.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And he says 120, just to give an accounting, 104 is the cutoff for slams. Like, top 100 is the difference. If you can maintain top 100 throughout the year, it's 400. It's a $500,000 difference pretty much only in slams for someone. That's like when money happens and there's actually money left over.
Yep. So that's so now I'm 120. I end the year. I ended up getting the Australian Open wild card because Ben won the wild card, but he got his ranking at like 98. And that was the year that he ended up
making the quarters.
Quartering.
Yep.
Yeah, quarters lost.
First time he used a passport.
Yeah, crazy. So yeah, we and that's also part of the reason Ben and I got so close, because we were that whole summer, like, we were both kind of playing similar stuff. It's just he was way younger than me, but we were playing the same tournaments. So now I start the year. I end up, I think I won a round in Australia, did I? It was the beginning of 2023. Maybe. Can't remember exactly. But yeah, I did actually. I beat Sunwoo Kwon first round. I knew it. Yeah, I beat So now I'm winning matches in slams. I won a match in U.S. Open 2022. Now I win a first main draw of Aussie Open 2023. Now I'm really starting to feel confident. I go from 120. I get my ranking up to 103. I was one win away 3 consecutive weeks of breaking top 100. I came back. I lost to Guido Andreozzi, first round of Monterey Challenger. Then I lost to Feliciano Lopez. Acapulco, he was a wild card. Lost to him in Acapulco in straights. And there was another one. I had 3 pretty rough losses for me, because I knew, okay, if I get top 100, this is my top 100 win. I'm finally going to be a top 100. I didn't even know if I'd be a pro tennis player, let alone like be top 100. Like, I'm finally getting toward that goal that I've been shooting for. Played terrible. Indian Wells comes and I dropped to 120. So yeah. So it was Martyr. Martyr was my Indian Wells loss. It was Andreozzi, Feliciano Lopez, Maximilian Martyr. Now I start Miami at 120 again. I'm like, well, I'm gonna delete the rankings app off my phone, because I was obsessing over it. I was looking at live rankings. Oh, this one, this person loses, I go up one. Like, I was like, I'm just gonna delete it. And then when I deleted it, so that Miami Open came, I qualied in. I beat Kutla first round, Chort second round, which was a massive win. Gregoire Barrère, I believe, third round, and Manarino fourth round.
I remember watching that.
And then I quartered it to Miami.
Yeah.
So
and you lost
now
to Medvedev?
I lost to Medvedev, yeah. So now I'm like, I knew I made top 100. They told me after my Barrère match, which was a crazy match, late 2 or 3 rain delays, and my coach, he intentionally, because I told him, I don't care about the ranking anymore. I'm not paying attention to it. So he, didn't say anything. And then when I won the Barrère match, because that was a crazy match too, I somehow snuck that out in 2 sets. And I put my racket in my bag, and then my coach goes, "Hey, just so you know, that match was for top 100." And I started bawling.
Oh,
it's the only time I started.
So we knew about it watching. Like, I
court.
remember watching that because they played it over. So we knew about it. And the other piece of context in breaking the top 100 is the cut is still 6 weeks ahead of slams, right? So in Miami, making top 100. So the acceptance list for slams. So you could be 120 the day before the French Open, but if you're top 104 6 weeks before, you're guaranteed into the French Open. So the Miami, like Roland Garros Delta for him, like I can speak for him because it was my worst service. Clay's his worst service. Clay's my worst service. So the 6 week Delta is actually probably like a 2 week Delta for him to get into the French Open on.
Yeah, because like once we start up on the clay court, it's like I
who
need
knows?
to go back to Mexico
We're flipping
and fight
coins.
hard or something.
Yeah, we're flipping coins.
Yeah. No, I was going to go to Mexico. No, actually, I was going to go to Korea, and I still went to Korea. So I ended up finishing Miami at 85. At this point, there's like a burden that's like lifted off my shoulders. And I feel like, man, I can just play tennis now. I can just play. Like, I'll play wherever. Like, let's just go. So then I do 3 weeks of challengers in Korea. Some people were like, oh, press asked me after Miami, you going to do the clay court season? I was like, my schedule was kind of already set before this. I don't want to let this kind of change the
I'm close
the
to
plan and the
close to
perspective.
platinum status on American. I needed to go.
Need a couple more trips.
Yeah, that was my answer.
Like,
hey, we had this plan. We want to stay diligent with this plan and make sure that
nothing to do with the clay that I want to avoid, like the plague.
So I go to Korea. I do decent. I go from 85 to 75. Now I'm like, man. Then I go to the clay. I pick up a check, and then I go to the grass. And I lost first round of the French. Duh. Oh, and I played Holger. Ooh. I got a set though. I actually got a set. I was kind of feeling good, and then he locked in. But it's all good. So then I go and play Surbiton. I went around in Surbiton. I lose second round. I'm not really feeling the grass. Can
I interrupt for a second? Because I had a conversation which centered around this moment in time.
I know. I think I know who you're talking about.
All right, tell the story then.
So I'm on the grass. I'm not really feeling too good. I go there. I go to Stuttgart. I qualified into Stuttgart, actually, and I lost to Gasquet. But I'm still like kind of just annoyed. I'm like, the reason I was annoyed, Gasquet does a great job when I was playing him of neutralizing my serve with just a continental grip on both sides, just chipping it at the service line. I'm serving big, forehand, backhand, doesn't matter, chipping at the service line. He's bringing me up into the court. I can't get it up and down. It's taking bad bounces. I don't really have good footing. So I'm frustrated. It was a frustrating match. And so I reached out to Kim Kleisters because Kim and I played World Team Tennis together, I believe, a year before. And there were so many times after these matches, Kim would be getting treatment. We'd be just kind of sitting around in the conference room and eating dinner. And we would just ask questions. Like I would just ask her, pick her brain about tennis. Like, the stories that she would tell, I was like, man, like her perspective on tennis, it's much like yours. It's so different than like what I experience. It's like Kim is like, obviously she was one of the best players ever. She's like, she's going to a tournament like, yeah, like I knew I, was good enough to, semi or, but like I wanted to win. I played the tournament because I'm trying to win it.
Like, that's not my reality.
Kim like went into tournaments going like, no, I plan on like, I'm going to win it. And like, just hearing just the mindset and it wasn't in an arrogant way at all, but it was just like her level of confidence. Like me, I'm showing up to tournaments thinking, I get another Grand Slam win. Like it's a pretty good week, Like Kim is like, no, like I'm focused on really kind of building on my game. Had a rough, this clay court season. Third round, fourth round, and I'm like, oh yeah, really rough time. But it's just cool to hear
the second week there.
Yeah, but it was just cool to sit and just listen to her talk tennis. And so I don't know why I did it. I just reached out and said, Kim, grass court tennis sucks, and she just responded. She was like, hey Chris, what's going on? And she listened to me. She let me kind of complain about it. And she gave me some tips. She was like, it might be good to on the grass, do some mini tennis games, do some continental skills. Cause you kind of find yourself having to use those shots a lot more on grass than you do on other surfaces. So like play mini tennis with your coach for 10 minutes, do your normal dynamic warm up in the grass with your grass court shoes on. It helps, kind of capture the footing a little bit more, just doing regular stuff on it. She gave me these great tips. And then I go to Mallorca. And then I go to Halle. I think I quali in Halle, and I lost to Hurkacz first round. And then I go to Mallorca, play Alex Mickelson first round, squeak out one against him. Played Ben second round, squeaked out one against him. Played, was it Lloyd Harris either in the quarters or the semis? Squeaked one out 7-6 in the third against him. Saved like 4 or 5 match points. And now I'm like, yeah, it was in the quarters, and then I played Rennick in the semis, and then Manarino in the final. And then I won it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is maybe I do like grass. But a lot of it obviously was that cool conversation I had with Kim, where she kind of just listened to me and she let me kind of just vent, and then she offered her help, and it was so cool to just be able to have that relationship with her, where she hit me back and told me what she thought I should do, and I ended up having success. Obviously, went on to Wimbledon, quartered there. That was a bit of a blur. It was like the craziest, like 9 matches in a row, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It was like boom, boom, boom. And then, obviously I come back. When I left the US after Miami, I went to Korea. Then I went to the clay. Then I went to the grass. I was gone for 12 weeks. When I left, I was 85 when I left. When I came back to the States, I was 30.
Wow.
Something like that.
That's when you get back to your house and the plates are all in the same spot, but it's not the same life.
So yeah, it was, or maybe I was like in the 30s or something like that. And then I quartered Atlanta, and then I hardly won anything after that. Yeah. So yeah, that ended up getting me top 30.
Do you think some of that was like the mental, you were like, I'm deleting the app. I'm just going to focus on, playing and enjoying ball to ball, match to match.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like even, and like you said, once I deleted the app, I just felt like, okay, this is kind of something that was hanging over my head. I'm not going to care. I'm just going to go out here and I'm going to play, and we're going to see what happens. Then obviously I ended at 85. I kind of played that whole next from 85 all the way up to whatever. When I came back, I was 30, kind of with that same mentality, because for so long I had been striving to get into the top 100. Now I'm 85. Like, to me, that's like a good cushion. Then I end at 75. And now it's like, hey man, let's just play. Like, everything was just going in. I was high on confidence. I was high on matches. And so things just started rolling, but I didn't feel much pressure. I was just like, oh, this pressure's off.
I'll read you the text I sent to Kim, and the 2 voice notes that she left would probably make you emotional. I said I should actually just send them to you at some point, but I said, hey, do I remember Eubanks saying you gave him encouragement advice on his ability on grass before his run last year? And I said, I'm making that up. And she left like the nicest, she said the exact same things about team tennis, late nights, but she gave a lot of credit to you for your curiosity, right? Like, and most players aren't super curious. I do it my way, or like it's a point of pride. I've never not responded to a player who's asked me a question on text, and I get a way fewer than you would ever imagine, right? And so anyway, she left me a couple of these things and just said the media made more of it. It was just a simple conversation, a couple of drills. But at the end, she said, yeah, he's just a great person, and I'm happy that we have that relationship. And so it was literally what you said was exactly what she said. That's what she said. Anyways, that's probably just ruin that. But we can move on. Listen, we all love that. We love that run. We love kind of everything that you've been about, the way you've gone about it, just the little moments where it seems like you're a great steward for the game, even from letting Coco know that she's wearing the Olympics, she's going to be the ring bearer. You're great at those moments. And the input I want, like, I know a lot of the stuff you're talking about just from being a tour person. I have no idea the answers to the questions I'm about to ask. And I want this to come off in the most flattering way possible, right? You work your entire life to do this thing, right? To do this tennis thing. And we've just heard your journey, the good parts, the bad parts, the stages, the leveling up, the leveling down, the mental gymnastics, the physical, all of this stuff, right? And then you come out of the shooter in broadcasting something you're not trained to do, and all of a sudden you will be, like, I hope you do a million things. I hope you're top 10 in the world. Even if you're top 10 in the world, you're going to be a better broadcaster than you are tennis player, because you're so good at broadcasting. Like, you are elite of elite. You're like Strahan level, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion. How do you balance that, where you have this thing, this blood, sweat, and tears that has created this other opportunity? And how do you value both of them? Like, I don't know that I'll never be upset about a bad pod show the way that I was upset about a match. Like it just doesn't work the same emotionally. Walk us through your current life in this trade-off between, I'm grinding. I want to get back to the top 30 because this is what I've done. This is what I've worked for. This is like what occupies my emotions in my brain space. And then also, I know what the 10 years, 20 years, 30 years after tennis will most likely look like, right? What is that trade-off? What are the positives and what are the challenges of your life as you're kind of, I don't want to say between, but you're fully committed to one and you dabble in this other space of which I think you're very good at it.
Yeah, well, I think for me the one thing that I did not want, and we laughed at it at the top of the show when I responded about joining you guys and starting getting kind of what my thought process was, even when the agents got involved.
You said, "What's your budget?" I said, "We have no money."
But the thing that I always wanted to make sure was very clear is that I'm a tennis player first. And that's one thing that I've done, like, is my best to make sure that even obviously I'm extremely grateful for these opportunities to do things with ESPN, to do things with Tennis Channel, to kind of enter, or dabble, like you say, in something different. That opportunity was afforded to me because of what I've been able to do on the tennis court. It's not solely dependent on, what I've done on the tennis court because, my results don't stack up to the level of like a Michael Strahan, Super Bowl champion. Like even my results before, they don't fully stack up, but I understand that, it kind of in a way got me in the door to be able to dabble, but that door is still open because of my abilities and what I can do and what I have done on the tennis court. So I don't want them to ever get too conflicted in which it's like, the broadcast is now, the main priority. It's like, no, I have a very limited amount of time in which I can be a professional tennis player. It's a profession that I didn't, fully know and believe I could do from a young age. And then when I kind of got that taste, I kind of got that bug of saying, oh, this is what I'm going to do for my livelihood. Like there's only a small amount of years you have to do that. And what's been really, really great is the networks that I've worked with have all been understanding and super flexible. And we make it clear that my tennis is first. If I'm playing in a Grand Slam and I'm supposed to, do some work for ESPN at the Australian Open, well, that will come after my playing is done. Like I'm not doing pre-production meetings while the tournament is going on. Like I'm a player. And then whenever that comes to an end, now I enter something different now, and they're super flexible. They're super understanding with it. So it never really creates this tug. It's like I'm even when I go to TC out in Santa Monica, I immediately, the first thing I do when I find my dates, I reach out to the UCLA assistant coach, Rickis de Villers, and I go, hey, what's your availability this week? Can we get on court? Can I get you for a couple hours to work on some things? Like that's the first thing I do. What gym am I going to work out at? Like I plan all this stuff around like, this is done first and the broadcast comes in after. So it's like all of my decisions are being made when I go on air, when I, do extra time or whatever. They're all being made with my tennis being my main priority because I know like the better I am in tennis, maybe the better, I can do in broadcasting, the more credibility I have with certain topics. Like it just sounds better. It's like, oh, it's cool to be able to have Wimbledon quarterfinalists. I'm not gonna lie, like that one's pretty fire. So literally, if I can do that, 2 or 3 times.
Literally, my notes. So I'm glad you said it, and I think I know the answer based on what you just said. You were talking about reaching out to Tennis Channel in 2021. I don't know a lot of lead broadcasters that had a career high ranking of 150 or 200. And I have this triple underlined. Did you need that Wimbledon? Like think through like all these little things that go a certain way. He says he's down 4 or 5 match points in Mallorca, right?
Oh man, against Lloyd Harris. Yeah.
So let's work backwards. Like the what if game never ends in sports and it's endlessly fascinating. That goes sideways. I don't know, like the momentum into Wimbledon, the days between. Did you need that Wimbledon quarterfinal to enter this at the scale that you wanted into this kind of afterlife that you've probably set up for yourself?
Yes. Yes, the scale that you're talking about. Yes, because I got to do Good Morning America with Robin Roberts right after Wimbledon. I think this is before my quarter. This is after my fourth round. I got to do GMA with Robin Roberts. I then got to do host Wimbledon. This was funny actually. My agent Carter Lynn, he was great. He when I lost at Wimbledon, I lost obviously in the quarters in 5 to Medvedev. And I do my cool down, shower, eat. We're all kind of gathered around. My coach, like everybody, we're all there. And I'm like, all right, guys, I guess I'll start, looking at flights and stuff tomorrow. And Carter looks at me, he goes, tomorrow? You can't leave tomorrow.
No.
I'm like, why not? He's like, dude, you got press to do.
Correct.
Like, what? I was like, I just did press. He goes, no.
No, you are.
You don't understand. And he looked at me and he goes, things are very different for you now. And I was like, what are you, Carter? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, I'm serious. Like, it's different. So then we come the next day. I get to do, I did GMA again, I believe. I did the Today Show. I think I did CNN, and I did maybe somebody else. And I did really well. Robin Robert, we had a great conversation on GMA. They wanted me to come back before the Open, so I got to do it again. So now I'm kind of out of doing ESPN and Tennis Channel.
He was too big. He was too big for us at that point, Mike. We were dumb. How stupid are we? He's like dropping GMA, and we're a dumb little. We're literally we're in my fucking gym right now, Mike.
I mean, I know. It's
our budget is.
I'm embarrassed that we even asked.
I'm so embarrassed. I've never been more embarrassed in a tennis conversation in my entire life.
Oh my God. I got to talk to these people. I got to talk to them. It was just me. They wanted to ask me about Wimbledon. They wanted to ask me about the US Open, but it was just it was a good like intro into that. And I was like, wow, it's different than sport. It's different than ESPN, but there's some similarities.
Let's do a podcast. Yeah.
He's like, I get hair and makeup, guys.
How do you do it? Zoom?
So that's kind of how, yes, I do. I will say, yes, I needed that to go my way I needed that Wimbledon run for sure to kind of, branch off into that. I think the tennis stuff, I was always kind of set a little bit. And then actually, I believe, I did ESPN for the first time after that Wimbledon run as well. That year's US Open coverage, I won my first round, lost second round, and that was the first time I ever did work with ESPN. So that also came on the backs of Wimbledon. So yeah, for sure. I definitely.
So walk us through. I want you to go as far in every slam as you can possibly go. I want you to go 7 for 7. And also when you lose, I'm kind of like, yeah, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I feel bad for you, but I'm just got to be honest with you. I get over that shit real quick because then I know you're going to be talking to us. Walk us through like the reality of you walk in one day and you have a racket bag and the next day you got like a clothing bag.
So, so I've been able to do it. I did it for Australian Open this year. And I did it I was supposed to do it for Wimbledon, but I decided to go play Newport. So I didn't do any coverage for Wimbledon, but then I did US Open again this year. And you play obviously and things don't go your way. You go into the locker room. I usually take a day in between. I'll reach out to, in the case of ESPN, I'll reach out to, Jamie Reynolds, who's one of the head guys overseas tennis. I'll say, hey, if you could just give me a day, I just want to kind of recover tomorrow, and then I'm cool to jump on air, the following day. And they're so flexible, they're so understanding, and that's kind of how it goes. It literally is, all right, decompress, tough loss, take a day off, and then I'm willing to get on air. I'm able to get on air whenever you guys need the next day. So then we do that, and then it's just that's when I think I fully go into broadcast for that time. Now I'm like making sure I'm trying to keep up with the production meetings. I'm getting, hey, what are you guys going to need from me? Will I be calling a match? Will I be doing analyst work? They're very different. Explain
the difference to listeners. Both cool.
So analyst stuff that's the stuff that I enjoy the most, I would say, because I can look at a match and it's like you're summarizing the whole thing because I'm watching the match beginning to end. I'm finding little points of momentum shifts. Somebody, has 2 break points, they don't get it, and then all of a sudden they get broken next game. Okay, now I'm going to pinpoint that when we're doing analyst stuff, we're kind of summarizing. Andy got off to a great start, got up an early break, was able to ride it out. Like, and then I'm just kind of talking about it. And then I'll find whether it's plays or tendencies or, if I'm calling up, John is obviously retired, but if I were doing John and he saves a break point going flat wide, I'm telling the producer as I'm watching it, hey, clip that point and put that into the highlight, because I want to mention, of course, flat wide, you're playing Isner, you got to sit there, you got to lean there, stuff like that. So it's kind of like summarizing it, whereas calling a match is different. And it also differs between who you're calling it with, whoever the play-by-play person is. It's almost like a doubles relationship. It's like certain play-by-play people, because they run the show, they kind of dictate how it goes. You follow their lead. You have a relationship. They have a certain style. You try to, in a way, like be yourself, but also compliment them. And then there's another play-by-play person who's very different. So you're having to get your thoughts out succinct in, 15 seconds. And there's constant conversation. So it just depends on who you're working with. That plays a big part. But obviously talking the entire time of the match and, paying close attention, trying to inform the viewer, but not give them not go too far in depth in a way. That's like a challenge of wordy, because I've come to realize, like, if you and I are talking tennis, Andy, and I say, oh, they keep going the same pattern, 2 cross 1 line, plays it up above the shoulder. What's he going to do? Slice short cross. And we're playing it in our head. It's very normal, I think, for tennis players to hear that and go, oh yeah, duh. Like it all makes sense. But for a viewer, it's like, how can I get them to the same point, but not use that type of terminology, not use these things that I don't seem that complex to us, but you simplify it a little bit so that they can also understand and learn about it. Like, that's the challenge within it. It's fun because when you get a thought out and like the timing of it is good and you didn't flub, you didn't kind of stutter your way through, and it's clean, it. And it's like a good feeling. Whereas you can still get that same feeling as an analyst. Like when you get your piece out and the timing of it is good, boom, you get that's kind of like the rush. That's like the nerves before we go on air. I'm like, okay, all right.
You get nervous before you broadcast?
Oh my God.
Really?
Dude, I was so nervous during those pre and post match interviews. You have at the Open this year, you have no idea. That's something that's
those
totally
great,
different.
by the way.
Yeah.
That's the analyst stuff, calling a match and doing pre and post interviews, three totally different skill sets.
They really are.
It's tough, man, because think of it. Also, I'm also doing it as like, I know you guys, like I'm a player too. And pre-match interviews, guys don't want to talk pre-match. They don't. Like, unless it's the guys who've done it 50, 100 times, like a Novak or a Rafa. Like Novak during his pre-match interviews is usually so calm. He'll rattle off a whole, soliloquy about how he's feeling and what he plans to attack the court. Like he'll tell you, like, oh, he'll be more straight up and just comfortable in it.
I am going to cut him here. And then I'm going to move the knife down vertically for the next 3 hours. Yeah.
Surgical.
Yeah.
I do have a question about those interviews. Why did you look like you were 7 feet tall?
Because he's 7 feet tall.
Compared to why did Tiafoe look like
Medvedev.
He was 3 feet tall?
No, so it was
and
just bad camera angle. Bad camera angle.
It looked like you were on an Apple box.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. But the camera was behind me because we did it in the locker room this year, which they had never done it in the locker room. It's usually outside the locker room. So
camera gets up above and shooting down at him.
Like Tiafoe looked like he was like 4'10".
And the best part was the face that he was making. Like he was like looking up. Like yeah, it was so funny. When I saw it, I was just like, wow.
My wife's like, how tall is Tiafoe? I was like, I think he's like 6'2". She's like,
is Eubanks 9 feet or is Francis 5 feet? Or is it both? She said. So do you and Medvedev, are you like before you go on, are you guys like sitting there just talking about like being skinnier than the other guy?
The thing is, Medvedev came and he did the interview second. So I was talking to Kaboli before we went on air. So like when he came up, it was actually kind of funny because he kind of smirked a little bit, and I have these questions like memorized, and I'm like trying to get it out in order, and because it's just weird. And then I looked at him, and he kind of like the first question, he was like, and he kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, this is awkward. But yeah, the interviews are just different. It's like you're talking to players when they don't want to be talked to. And then like post-match it's a little bit more
person's in a better mood because they just won whoever you're talking to.
Yeah,
if exactly. you would have broken me into a million pieces if your first question in Medvedev had been like, these people don't know about baggy socks, do they? It would have.
Hey, do you have to customize your waist too?
Like,
you have to get your waist taken in on your pants. Same here, man. You don't get it.
Tight socks, huh? Not us.
How about the exit row, huh? The exit row with nothing in front. They don't know about that. That's a bargain.
Talking about like just dodging raindrops, just like, it's just like you can't hit us. Listen, I think the interviews are so much better when there's a little bit of personality. I know tennis is your focus. I get it. The limited amount of time, live your dreams, do your thing. Do not for a moment give up 1 ounce of leverage because they don't let them pull a Kenny Thorne on you. Do not let them say this offer is there till June 1st. Do not give up one piece of leverage as you're looking forward. Those offers will be there. You are absolutely fantastic.
Unless it's from Served Media.
I want to see. Yeah. Well, he's already. We're done. We're done. He's made his stance.
He already cooked us.
This is literally. He's going to send us an invoice for the show. I think. I think this is I think there's. But do not for a second. ESPN 12-year extension. You and James, I want to have all of the reps. You guys are who I want to listen to for the next decade of my life. Thank you for coming on. I feel like this has been a long time coming, probably longer than you have. We think about you more than you think about us. But hey, listen, man, I appreciate you. I wish you all the luck. Hope you get back up to the point where you're being seated in slams all over again. Do not give up an ounce of leverage because your afterlife is as clear as I've ever seen it. You're one of the good guys. I don't hear a bad word about you, which is rare on the
you
tennis
just haven't
tour.
talked to the right people. They're out there.
I'll find them eventually. But until then, only good things. Banks, you're the man. I appreciate you coming on with us.
Thank you, guys. Mike, thank you, guys.
Thanks,
this was so fun. Like you say, long time in the making, but I knew I was like, man, if the chance comes, that's going to be so fun to be able to kind of just get on here, talk with you, see what you guys have built. It's been really cool. So.
Yeah, we're actually not going to run this episode. We just wanted to waste your time to get back at you.
That's fine. I'm fine with storytelling.
Yeah, I was like, I could waste my own time, but I'm really good. This is it. I finally got revenge. Banks, thanks, man. Good luck for the next couple of weeks. Don't be a stranger to us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.